Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I am talking Red Sox, like I do always. I'm actually recording it on the same day that I recorded my last Talk Red Sox, which I guess will have been posted yesterday if you haven't seen that one. It's basically talking about the Walker Buehler signing and how the Red Sox have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, like straight up, legitimately have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. But as I was recording that video, I was thinking, I'm like, the Red Sox have been super active over the last couple of weeks, and I don't always have time to make full-length videos on stuff. And so I'm like, well, let's go through some of the transaction logs. And once I went through this, I was like, holy crap, we've done a lot of stuff over the last few weeks that I haven't really been able to cover in depth. So that's basically what this video is. We're going to talk about the Red Sox, and we're going to talk about all the things that they've done this offseason. And so, yeah, let's get on started. So the first thing that the Red Sox did was signing Aroldis Chapman. That was back on December 10th. That's when they made it official. I think they actually announced they were going to sign him a few days before that. But I remember that leading into that signing, the Red Sox hadn't done anything. And then it's the first signing, and everybody was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, we're signing Aroldis Chapman, and we haven't done anything else. Like, this was on the heels of Juan Soto going and joining the Mets, and the Red Sox were pursuing him pretty actively and pretty involved until the second to last day, it sounds like. And I mean, that was nice. It was nice to just be involved with a signing like that. But at the same time, um, they hadn't done anything. And we're like, where are we going to go? And then there was a flurry of moves back to back to back. And we're like, are you shitting me? Kind of like, are we going to do anything? And then it's just Aroldis Chapman. But whatever, Aroldis Chapman was the first signing. So let's look at Chapman real quick. You can just click on him here. Actually, let's do it this way. Chapman is a guy that's gonna be in that closer mix, at least as of right now. Like Chapman, he went and had a 3.79 ERA this last season. He had 14 saves, but that came in 19 opportunities actually, and so five blown saves, under 75%. Success rate there, not great. But what Chapman does better than anybody in baseball, like almost anybody in baseball, is he just strikes out everybody. Straight up, he will strike out. Where's that thing down here? He will strike out 14.3 batters per nine. That's what he did last season. The year before, 15.9 batters per nine. Like two-thirds of the batters that come up are getting struck out by Chapman, which is insane when you really think about it like that. Um, and the other side of that is he walks a lot of people. And so it's a give and take with Chapman. But at the same time, if he's coming in as a seventh, eighth inning late reliever, I take that. I don't want him to be my closer, but he can close. Like the guy's got 300 plus saves, and there's a lot of baggage that comes with Chapman, and I don't. I'm not going to talk about it because I hate just even thinking about some of it. But at least as a player, he's going to be productive out of this bullpen, and he's a lefty, which we needed a back end of the bullpen lefty, and he's going to do that for you. So it was a solid signing at the time. It was just horrible timing. And thankfully, Breslow has done a lot of other things, so people are already starting to forget about it. I think today you had the Walker Buehler signing 8 hours ago. People have already forgotten about Chapman at this point. Just nobody cares. And so, and you knew that was going to happen. But again, if that was the last signing of the offseason and he signed on February 22nd, nobody talks about all this the way that they did before, because he was the first move that happened. And we were like, you just kidding me? This is the guy that's first. Um, but whatever. The next move that they did, and this was a few days later, it was the day after it was announced, but it was the Garrett Crochet trade. And in my immediate reaction video, I made a pretty in-depth one talking about this. My immediate reaction to this was, that was a lot to give up. That was a lot. And as I've thought about it some more, I have realized that my take is exactly the same. I don't think my opinion has changed very much. And I'm not, for all of you guys that are like, well, okay, we got a great pitcher. Yes, we totally did. I'm going to explain myself here in just a second. But we gave up Kyle Teel and Brady Montgomery and Chase Meadrow and Lukeman Gonzalez, which you can't see because it's being cut off here. But three of these pieces don't bother me as much as Brady Montgomery. That kind of bothers me. And I think he's the guy that we're going to regret in a while, because he was a legit top three potential draftee, and he just fell in the draft because he shattered his ankle during the playoffs in his senior year before he was graduating. And he's healed and he's gonna be fine, but he didn't play it all last year. But he's one of those guys that's a true 5-tool talent. He's got an 80 grade arm, a cannon in the outfield, hit 27 home runs last year in college baseball, which is nuts. That's a ton of power. And I just think, damn, we're gonna look at that in 3 years, and that's gonna be bad. He's gonna be top five, top 10 prospect in all of baseball. I can just feel it. And the part that bothers me the most about this, because we got an amazing pitcher in Crochet, and I'm not bitching about the trade, even though it sounds like I'm bitching. But I think that we could have done this for less. And the reason I say that is because the reports that have kind of come out have been that Chris Getz, the GM of the White Sox, he got like a text that morning from Craig Breslow, and basically Breslow caved to what he was asking for. He wanted Kyle Teal, he wanted Braden Montgomery, and then obviously the other couple pieces were included in this. But like those are the two main pieces, and he's like, you get those two in, the deal's done. And there was no other like second place person behind it. There was no other team that's like, yeah, they almost had a deal in place, but the Red Sox just got over the top. It's like, no, they just Craig Breslow, he dropped his nuts on the table, and he's like, here you go, you can take what you want. And that's commendable in some ways because the Red Sox were not waiting around, and they needed an ace. And Garrett Crochet is a total stud. like like look at these numbers here. And I think if you sign Crochet to a 6 to 8 year extension, and people are talking like 8 year extension for $200 million, I actually think he might want like a 6 year extension for like 150 maybe, because then he's a free agent again at 31, and he could get another 7 8 year contract on top of that potentially. I don't think he would want an 8 year deal because then he's a free agent at 33, and maybe he's looking at a 4 year deal because he came off another injury or something. But it's very reasonable that he could go and have 6 very productive years, be 31. And then you look at it the same way that you're looking at like Max Fried or Corbin Burns right now, where they're still going to get, they got $200 300 million contracts behind them. So I think that a 6 year deal is probably more likely what you're maybe looking at for Crochet. I don't think he wants that long term deal unless you're going to give him a 10 year deal, which I don't think that I would want to do that. So I think that that sweet spot is actually going to be six. I think it's 6 years, but we'll see. 6 year deal. That's what I'm looking at for an extension possibly. But if you don't extend them, then the assets that you lost here are kind of tough. And the reason that it bothers me so much is I mentioned before, you had that phone call, and they just kind of caved to him. And so basically it was like Chris Getz woke up that morning, and it's like a fanfic almost. He got like a text from Breslow, and he opens his eyes and he's groggy. He's like, "Hey baby, I know you wanted those two players. I'll give you them. You can have Teal and Montgomery." And he's like, oh hell yeah, oh done. Meet me on my place tonight, and we'll iron out the details. And so this is what it felt like. It's like as the reporting comes out, and this is from like all around, all media. It's like the Red Sox have the best offer. And so I think that like maybe you could have done Kyle Teal and like Franklin Arias if you negotiated a little bit more. But I don't think the Red Sox wanted to wait around, and that is commendable in some ways because you don't want to lose out on Garrett Crochet, because another team could have done this like 2 days later if they're like, you know what, we're going to give you what you want because we need him. But the Red Sox beat him to the punch, and that's good, but it leaves like a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth knowing that there maybe was some more wiggle room for negotiation. And I won't care as much as long as they extend it. But if they don't, I'm gonna taste it for a little bit, I can tell you. And so it is what it is. The next move, though, this happened like the same day, it was announced the same day, was the Yankees traded Carlos Narvaez to the Red Sox for Elmer Rodriguez. And Elmer Rodriguez was actually like the number 24 prospect in the Red Sox system. Pretty interesting little guy. Let's see if I can go back here. Elmer Rodriguez here. He had a 2.91 ERA this last year and 89 innings pitched, 102 strikeouts, so he strikes out at a good rate. He just walks too many batters, but he doesn't give a whole lot of hits either. So it's kind of weird. He's a starter right now. I think that long term he potentially is more like a high leverage reliever. But with the Yankees, I mean, they develop high leverage relievers like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think if he fizzles out as a starter, he's probably going to be very good out of their bullpen for a lot of years. And that's a little bit of a bummer, but at the same time, he's still 2 years away at the earliest. And we got back Carlos Narvaez. Oops, we're going the wrong way here. Wow, I'm all over the place. We got back Carlos Narvaez. Atlanta. Narvaez. We got back Carlos Narvaez for the third time. And Narvaez actually is not a bad little player. in the Venezuelan Winter League, which is probably like the equivalent of like Double A, I would guess, something around that range. Just just this last winter, like within the past couple of weeks, he batted 377 with a 456 on base percentage and an 1118 OPS. It's not bad. That's pretty dang good. He was one of the best players in that league. 5 home runs, 5 stolen bases, which is kind of weird. Um, but then at AAA this last year, 96 games, 254 batting average, 782 OPS. But it's the 370 on base percentage that gets me kind of excited for him, because catchers, they don't always have like the time to spend to like develop their hitting. And by all accounts, Narvaez here, he's a very well liked catcher in terms of the pitchers. Like they like working with him, and he's a very defensively minded catcher first. Like he's a defense first catcher, which when you have a guy like um, Connor Wong is a very below average catcher, and it's kind of hard to watch sometimes. But like, look at these metrics for catching. It's not good. And overall, he's not a good catcher. He just isn't. But and like this is actually really weird. Like because you look at the season for Connor Wong, and he actually produced very well. But like these metrics don't indicate that he's going to be able to maintain this from Connor Wong. I think look at where he hits the ball here. Fenway Park, man. I think he's just taking advantage of Fenway Park, which is great because you know what? He plays for the team that plays at Fenway Park. So I guess that's great. And maybe these numbers aren't always going to indicate what he's actually going to be able to produce on the field. Um, but there's a possibility he could regress. It's not what we're talking about, but just leaving that out there. But Narvaez, on the other hand, he's going to balance out Connor Wong here. And if he's our backup catcher going into the season, it's a little tough having a backup catcher who's like never really played the major leagues before. I kind of wonder if they're going to try to require somebody like Christian Vasquez or something. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. Just need a defensive guy that's going to be able to balance him out. And Carlos Narvaez can be that. And they have 6 years of control with the guy. So, and he's only 26. Like, he's got some potential here. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star or anything, but he's got some potential for sure. You could definitely look and see that in the future. He could be a solid backup catcher. He could even develop into an everyday catcher. Catchers are weird, man. They're hard to project. You never know. You didn't think Connor Wong was going to be an everyday catcher, and look where we're at. So anyway, so those were the first couple moves that we had, and that all happened in like the span of a couple days here. That was all finalized. And then we designated Emmanuel Valdez for assignment, and we signed Joe. That was the guy that I had up before. There was Joe Voglowski. Let's see. Yeah, Joe Voglowski. And he was the 19th round pick by the Pirates this last year. He didn't play at all because he was injured. Basically, he's just like a flyer type guy. I mean, he's a 19th round pick. Like, what are you going to expect from the guy? Not a whole lot. But at the same time, we needed a spot for Emmanuel Valdez, and we got something back for him. And this is a guy that's out of college. He's probably going to get plugged straight into high A or double A. You never know what you're going to get out of him. I mean, we don't need to talk about this guy too much because I don't know much about him. Nobody knows much about him. He didn't even play in the majors this last year. But these are some pretty decent numbers. You take that. That's okay. And so that all happened. And then they had all of these non-roster invitees. And the most notable ones are Brian Mata, Michael Fulmer, and Isaiah Campbell, who all were designated for assignment recently. And they were all able to be retained. Michael Fulmer wasn't like that. He was just on a minor league contract. But he didn't get taken in the Rule 5 draft. So these guys are all pretty interesting and could even be back in the mix to make the majors this next year. Now, and the next significant move after that was Cam Boozer, who this just happened a couple of days ago. But Cam Boozer was traded for, I'm going to say this so wrong, Yoiker Fajardo. And I'm a little bummed out to lose on Cam Boozer here because he won the Tony Conigliaro Award this last year, which is basically an award given out for somebody who's battled back from some major trials in their life and succeeded as a result of it. And Boozer had a very nice season this last year. For a guy, he's 32 years old this last season. This was his age 32 season. And he came up and he did everything you could ask for from a Red Sox fan. I mean, in reality, like look at what his minor league career here. Look at the gap that you're going to find in here. Like, he didn't pitch from 2017 to 2021. He's been battling his way from indie ball. Got signed by Arizona, released again. More indie ball. Played for the Red Sox minor league system all last year. They re-signed him again in 2024. wasn't even doing that well, but they needed somebody in the bullpen, and he came up and he did everything that he could have possibly done to stay on the roster. Everything. And this is so cool. This was so cool for him. And he had a very emotional first outing at 32 years old, making his major league debut. One of the oldest players in recent memory to do that. And we traded him, unfortunately. But I think that it was like the right move because you have some lefties. Like you signed Justin Wilson. Does it not have a transaction log so I can find that trade? You signed Justin Wilson here. I'm just gonna copy and paste this. And then you also signed Chapman, and so you're not going to be able to like carry three lefties on the major league roster, really. And so he was going to be at AAA again, and it makes sense. You need the roster spot, and so they got this little young kid who he was just signed by the White Sox this last year, and look at how he performed. Just a quick aside, my son decided that he wanted to join the party, so here he is. But look at how this guy performed. I mean, at 17 years old and the DSL, he had a 3.91 ERA, 50 innings pitched, 64 strikeouts, 11.4 strikeouts per nine, 1.4 walks per nine. 1.4 walks. This guy doesn't walk anybody. He strikes out a great amount of batters. He's 17 years old, and this stuff right here is interesting to me. Now, he's 17. He hasn't even really hit the minor leagues left. Like, this is Dominican Summer League. Like, this is not like the real minor leagues. It's like the prep leagues for like international players. But he'll probably be in single A this next year at 18 years old. And he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on, I guess, for the 2028 season. But these are the type of guys you kind of acquire for guys like Cam Boozer. And at the end of the day, I mean, we got Yorker Fajardo, which I'm hopefully saying that right, but 18-year-old lottery ticket starting pitching prospect. And if he can maintain some of what he's doing here over the next few years, this guy could be a pretty interesting prospect in a couple of seasons. You never know. People develop. It's going to be a wait and see. So we'll wait and see. But after that trade, we had the Patrick Sandoval signing. Ooh, big sigh. We had the Patrick Sandoval signing. And people at the time, again, just like everybody else when Chapman signed, they were like, oh, we're signing Sandoval. Like, this guy's not even going to help us this year. He's hurt. Well, yeah, okay, he signed a 2-year contract. But Sandoval's a pretty reasonable guy to have like at the back end of your rotation. And I mean, if you're losing Lucas Giolito after this next season, which is very plausible, I mean, Sandoval in 2022, only 2 seasons ago, had a 2.91 ERA, 3.09 FIP. He strikes out a good amount of batters, walks a little more than I'd like, but he's not a bad guy. He threw a complete game shutout 2 years ago. If that means anything. Not really. But he's going to be back like in August or September at the earliest. And he's probably going to be like a long reliever if he does come back at all this season. But if not, I mean, you have him for next year at a pretty reasonable rate. I think he signed like a 2-year, $20 million contract. 2-year, $18 million contract, something like that, if I remember correctly. And, yeah, I think it says it right here. Sandoval were in $5.5 million in 25 and then 12.75. I mean, this isn't bad for like a back end of the rotation guy. And he's a lefty. You need lefties. Really, you only have Garrett Crochet as like a left-handed starting pitcher. Even your depth guys aren't left-handed. And so this is like a move for next year. And this is, you're getting like the Walker Buehler before he can rehab. Like hopefully Sandoval can come in and pitch 30 to 50 innings at the end of the season or something like that if he's starting, or maybe even like up to 20 innings would be something just to give him a little bit of taste this year. But you're not banking on a lot. You're banking on him revving up for next season. It's a fine move. Totally fine. The guy's only 28 years old. Like, I don't have a problem with this at all. But again, people were like, oh, this is the guy that you're signing as your last starter. Like, they're not going to pick up anybody else. Like, no. Obviously, they're going to pick up somebody else. And that's what leads us to the move from today, which was the move for Walker Buehler. And, I mean, we talked about it pretty well yesterday, I thought. But Walker Buehler, I mean, disgusting numbers back in 2021. Simply disgusting. I mean, 2.47 ERA in 33 starts, which led all of baseball, 207 innings pitched, a 171 ERA plus, led all of baseball. He was the most efficient baseball, the best pitcher in baseball at a rate basis. Got 4th in the Cy Young, which I haven't even looked at this race again, but it had behind Max Scherzer, Zach Wheeler, and Corbin Burns. Oh yeah, this was that year. It's actually pretty surprising. I remember this year I probably would have. I don't know. Corbin Burns won, but I felt like that Zach Wheeler was probably better, and I mean WAR kind of shows that. But even Walker Buehler was better than Corbin Burns. It's just kind of, ERA carried the day, which is a little surprising considering the inning difference here. But we're not talking about that. Walker Buehler's the guy here, and so Walker Buehler got fourth in the Cy Young here. And then he got hurt. His arm kind of exploded after he was dealing with some injuries at the beginning of 2022. And he missed all of 2023, came back in 24, was bad during the regular season. But he pitched in the playoffs, and he was the last guy on the mound when the Dodgers won the World Series this year, and pitched 10 scoreless innings to end his year. And so he's still showing you that he's like got that dog in him. And the Red Sox, and this is something I didn't mention yesterday in that video, but the Red Sox swapped out Nick Pivetta essentially for Walker Buehler. That's basically what ended up happening. And then they added Garrett Crochet on top of it. So they added a number one starter. They swapped out Pivetta for Walker Buehler, which I'd rather have Buehler because the peak is here that you don't have with Pivetta. And then they offered Pivetta the qualifying offer. So whenever he signs with somebody else, they're going to get a draft pick. Like, what a master class offering Pivetta the qualifying offer and him not accepting it. Because that was a risk. People were like, what are we doing here? Why are you offering Pivetta a qualifying offer? And he didn't accept it. And look what just happened. You got Walker Buehler, who I would rather have. You got Garrett Crochet. And you're going to get a pick for Pivetta in like the second round. And you know who the last couple qualifying offer picks were? Like the compensation picks that we had, the last couple notable guys. Just a couple guys by the names of Christian Campbell and Roman Anthony. Yeah. Yeah, those are compensation picks. Those weren't guys that we drafted in the first round. Those were comp picks that we hit on, and they're top 10 picks or top 10 prospects in all of baseball right now. And so these picks matter, and it's so good. It's incredible to see what they've been able to do with drafting high school and college bats. Now they have to sign the pitchers, and that's what they're doing. They know they can't develop pitchers very well. And so they've signed the pitchers, and they're developing the bats. These moves are great. I mean, this is a honestly crazy 2 weeks, considering nothing happened before like December 6th, whenever Chapman was announced. I think it was like the 5th, and then we actually got it like formally signed pen to paper on the 10th, which was the day before the Rule 5 draft. But what do you guys think? I mean, this is a lot to have gone on, and we're talking about like let Craig cook. That's been the thing. Like, let him cook. Like he's gonna show you what he's up to. And dude, like we got our turkey dinner. We got our prime rib with Garrett Crochet. We've got our mashed potatoes with Aroldis Chapman. We've got our cranberry sauce over here with Carlos Narvaez. We've got our stuffing over here with Walker Buehler. We got like a full meal coming. And I don't know, guys. I'm excited for this next season. There's still moves to be made. We still have got more. We got a right-handed bat coming, and I hope they get another high-leverage reliever. Maybe a closer. I floated the idea of trading for Ryan Helsley. You could maybe do Johan Duran, package Christian Vasquez. That was one of you guys suggested that trade. And that's something that I've kind of been floating in lesser words. That's a good trade package, too. I like that. And so maybe you do that. Maybe Cutter Crawford, a deal happens with him, possibly. I mean, Cutter Crawford is a guy that I think is going to get traded more like in spring training. I think that if he's our number 6 starter and we go through spring training with 6 healthy starters, all of which you can perform at the major league level, there are other teams that are going to need that 6th starter. And so we have 6 proven starters that can do that. And then we've got like 4 guys on top of that who could start. So we could afford to trade Cutter Crawford and still have room for injuries of our own, which will happen down the road at some point. You can't go through a season with 5 starting pitchers. But if you trade Cutter Crawford, you could probably get a top 100 pick, maybe even 2, depending on the urgency of some of these teams. There might be lower top 100 type guys, but like you can still get some talent back. Anyway, guys, my son's deciding that it's the end of this video, but let me know what you guys think in the recap that I've done here and the moves that are still going to happen. Who's the right-handed bat that we're going to sign? Is it going to be Randall Grichuk? I think it's going to be Alex Bregman. Honestly, I really do. But I think his market's going to cool, and I think that we're going to sign him for like a JD Martinez type contract. like a 4-year, $110 million contract or something. Because I think there's going to be a game of chicken, and I don't know who else is a suitor for Alex Bregman at this point. I really don't. But let me know in the comments section. We'll chat soon. Say goodbye to Roman here. And I will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.